Hi, here we are. It's Thursday again, and we're back for another, gosh, I think this is our fifth support and guidance session. So time is flying. I want to welcome back Shannon Horn. For those of you who don't know, past parent, past PTO president, assistant pastor at North Heartland. Correct assistant? Did I say that correctly? Good.
Close enough, yes.
Oh,
yes.
What's your true title? We better go ahead.
Oh, my true title? I'm an associate pastor.
I'm sorry, associate pastor.
Really matter. It just means I do whatever.
I know these titles, right? So welcome back. We have a few questions. I mean, obviously, our stay-at-home order had been extended last week when we spoke, and I started thinking, I think people are looking forward to the stay-at-home order expiring, here in a week or so. What are ways that you feel like, parents, students, just people in general are going to be able to stay safe yet socialize responsibly? I think it's hard. I look at the TV and see Jacksonville beaches open, and you see life carrying on in other places. So I'm just trying to think ahead and prepare myself, and help everyone prepare themselves for what's to come.
I think that what you just said there is so key. I think the concept of just thinking ahead and preparing so that you're not surprised by that. I think especially for parents, maybe, especially if you parent with someone else, whether that's someone who lives with you or you co-parent in a situation where you share custody or something like that. I think it's important for you to go ahead and start planning ahead of what reentry looks like. We're actually working on that. Even where I work, there's this phased idea that they're talking about, phasing people into reconnecting with one another, and what does that look like? I think this would be a really good opportunity for you as a parent, or again, as I said, if you're co-parenting with someone else, to begin to look at that and say, what are we comfortable with? Do we feel like we still need to stay at home and, be really conservative in our approach? Do we feel like we might be willing to open up to some driveway hangouts, or do we feel like I have a friend who's not comfortable going to a park, but is comfortable coming to someone's driveway because it feels like you can more protect who's there. And, when you're at the park, you don't know who's going to show up or how many people are going to show up. But when you're in a driveway, you feel like you can, maybe limit that, or in someone's backyard, or do you feel comfortable? And so I think as local authorities begin to give feedback on what that looks like and what reentry begins to look like, I think now is the really good time to begin to consider, what are we comfortable with? When this all started, before they even put the stay at home, when we were starting, this very first was starting, I had a friend who had decided, and I think we even talked about it on that first call, where I had a friend who decided that they would basically coexist with 3 other families. So those families said, we are comfortable with our kids hanging out. We all know where we're going. We're all being honest about where we're at, where we're not at. And I think that's important for you to be able to have those conversations, and maybe be able to think about your friends or your children's closest friends, and be able to have some conversations. Like, I've already kind of behind the scenes been talking with some of my daughter's parents of those friends, and saying, like, what is your game plan? Kind of, what are you thinking? Because it takes all that edge off of it when your kid's suddenly like, can we have a sleepover? And you're like, no, well, everyone else is going but me. Well, you don't want to be in that position, right? So if you can prepare for that, I think this is a fine time to be able to consider, what kinds of things are we going to be okay with, and what kinds of things are we still hesitant and maybe would prefer to wait just a little bit before we get into.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see, especially with teenagers, that could be an arguing point. So that's very good advice.
Yes, they have access to some things that littler ones don't see, where they know what their friends are doing.
Yeah, right. Well, I always like to think that even in the darkest times, there are positives that come out of things like this. And I know one of the positives has been all the time that families have had a chance to spend together. I talked to Dad this morning that said he enjoyed family dinners more than anything, in the last 5 weeks. So what kind of things have you run into that, you could give us a positive message about this whole quarantine?
Oh, goodness. I think there's been so much. Well, first of all, my family and I have become huge fans of, you may have may have seen it or heard of it. John Krasinski from The Office has done Some Good News.
Oh,
It's a great thing
yeah.
you can watch with your family, and just so uplifting to see some of the great things that are going out. And you know, you just, of course, I cry. My family laughs at me because there's always something I'm like, oh, that's so special. You know, because I'm a little softy, so I do cry at stuff like that. But I think there's just so many good things out there. And I think, you know, we were, you know, seeing that the increase in family dinners, you know, people getting out and getting more health because, again, you know, for the benefit of their mental and physical health, it's like when you're in your house all day long, you know, people are probably, I do think people are moving more outside than they probably normally do, where normally it's easy to get, you know, you get home from work, you're exhausted, you just, you know, you make your dinner and you sit down in front of the TV, where now if work is just downstairs and then you come up, it's like, yeah, maybe I'll go outside and take a walk. So I feel like people have enjoyed that more. I really think the biggest thing that I've noticed is I think people have become much more aware of what they've taken for granted. And, you know, whether that's your freedom or the ability to communicate and connect with people in real life, or whether that's school, your children's teachers, the ability to be able to access, you know, just being able to run to the store because you forgot something and not worried about getting out in it. So I think there's been a lot of things like that where people have realized, gosh, you know, I really took for granted going out and sitting at a restaurant and enjoying a wonderful meal. You know, I think a lot of people have maybe slowed down enough to realize, gosh, you know, I really took a lot of things for granted. And so I hope that people, kind of going back to what Suzanne had asked, I think that's one of my hopes for a lot of folks is that they'll, even in this time, begin to say, what have we really learned from this as a family? Gosh, it's so great to have these family dinners. You know what? Before they reopen and life goes back to what it was, let's just agree now that we need to have a minimum of 2 nights around the table together. You know, we know we've got practices or, you know, other things that we're doing, but we need to make sure that we have time to do that and or to take walks. I think that's one of my things. It's very easy for me when I'm busy to be like, oh, I just don't have time for that. But, you know, it's been very good for me. And so I think to rearrange my schedule to say, hey, I'm going to do that. So my hope is that people are maybe in this time, as we even begin to think about like possible reentry, that they're going, hey, let's assess what's been really good about this time for us. What have we really enjoyed? Let's not lose that. Let's build that into our schedule as we go forward.
It's good. I loved your analogy. I think it was the last time or maybe the time before, but just that we're in the same storm, but we're all in different boats because I think, you know, as I talk to families and friends, et cetera, I mean, that's very true. You know, I think one of my concerns is when you look ahead to reentry, you know, we all have a list of things. Oh my goodness, I have to get done while we're still stay at home and all these things that I have to do once we're able to reenter. And it kind of creates a little bit of tension and worry. So I worry that all the empathy that maybe we had, you know, collectively during stay at home when the expectations were similar, even though we're in different boats, I worry a little bit, but that some of that may become frustration, a little bit of anger, you know, just that realization that some people in their boat, that boat's going to sail a little bit differently than your own boat might. So I guess what advice do you have, knowing that we have families, you know, 280 some families in different boats. How can we support one another, not judge one another, you know, not be frustrated by things that aren't open or things that are opening more slowly than others? I worry a little bit. And selfishly, as the school administrator, you know, the question I get every day is, well, are we going to have summer school? Are you going to be there in the fall? And, you know, all this planning that we're doing, these plans change every single day. And I think family plans will also change every day. So all of that, the question, I guess, is what advice or support can you give to know that all of our boats are going to be riding this out in a different way, and we have to trust one another and trust that another person's boat's doing the best it can?
There's a lady that I follow on Instagram. I'm sure I can't even figure out how to pronounce her last name, but Christina something. Anyway, lots of people know her. Somebody else told me about her, but she's like a mom who does comedy, and one of the things is mind your own mommyhood. But I think there is value to that of like you don't it's the same thing your parents, maybe your mom used to say that. Well, I don't care what so-and-so's mom does. I'm not so-and-so's mom, and I used to my mother would say that because I wanted to be treated like so-and-so. And, but there is truth to that, is every parent is going to have to make decisions based on what they know and what they have. And I was literally just on a phone call before this earlier with someone where I'd explain, like, and we talked about this last week, what is my biggest concern? Do I have someone in my family who has an immunosuppressant issue? Do I have a child who might be at high risk? And so how I approach the reentry is going to look very different from someone who has a small business that's struggling and just needs to get back to work, and is going to be very different than someone who works in a high risk environment. It's going to be very different than someone who has, is fighting some other illness issue. And so I think looking at that and realizing that, like, hey, your plan for reentry is your plan for reentry. And it makes sense to, again, like I said, talk with some of the people, get some feedback, but there's a better than good chance that some of my daughter's friends are going to reenter faster than I'm comfortable with, or much slower than I'm comfortable with. But the truth is, I have to respect that that's their call. Like, I don't answer for their call. I don't answer for how they, train their kids or what they do with their money or whatever. And so I think, looking at all that, it's something to keep in mind that, you have to take a look at all those factors and realize that there's a lot of factors that you don't have access to. So you don't know what that person, I'm laughing because my dog, go out of here. But, there's a lot of factors that you're not aware of. What is that person's financial situation? What is the fear that's driving them? And none of us want to admit that we're being driven by fear, but we are. I mean, that's why some people are we're going back way too fast. And other people are going, oh my gosh, this is way too long. Like, our numbers are nothing like New York. Why are we doing this? Why can't we, go back right now? And, so I think it's just, you have to look at that and say, gosh, I don't know all those variables. Like, last I checked, you don't know what someone else is going through. So my dog, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's a new norm. Well, I do hope it, to end that question, I guess, I just hope that we continue to be an empathetic, just group of people in the community, in the Midwest and in the whole world, because, we're better together. And I want us to all respect the decisions that are being made and trust those. So, a good message to have.
I mean, what's almost like treat somebody the way you'd want to be treated. Like, if I completely disagreed with how you're doing it, do you want me to be disrespectful and rude and condescending to you? No. Then please don't treat me like that because you don't think it the same way I do. We are all looking at this from a very different place from where our ship is in the water. And we are better together. Like, if your ship is, if you're on a cruise line and things are going well and you're smoothing along and I'm on a raft with a hole in it, it'd be really awesome if it's, instead of judging my raft with a hole in it, you throw down a rope and help me out a little bit, help a girl out. Like, I don't think any of us need more stuff heaped on us, whether that's guilt or shame or judgment. I don't think it doesn't help. I mean, you can heap that on someone, and I guess maybe for a second you'll feel better about yourself till someone does it to you. And I just don't think that helps anyone. Like, I think in the long run, if it's really bothering you, you just have to say, like, hey, that's not mine to own. Like, that's their yard. This is my yard. And I'm going to pay attention to that's their boat. This is my boat. I'm going to pay attention to my boat. I think we are better together. And I think if we can just pause and be like, if this were me, how would I want someone to treat me in that situation? Right? Isn't that what we tell our kids all the time? Like, treat someone else the way you'd want to be treated. So let's do that as adults. Let's model that for our kids.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking, as you talk about that, what it's going to be like with kids entering back in, to school. They've had such different experiences, and that will be something that our teachers will have to keep in mind, or it would be good for parents to fill teachers in if there, been some major issues, so that we know kind of where the little kids' heads are.
Exactly. I mean, especially, and I think we're all going to have to, it's going to take time to right size everybody, because, some people, like, I have a friend, we were just talking the other day, like, for her, really nothing's changed. She stays home, her children are homeschooled, and they're still allowing the kids to have friends in and out of the house. So for her,
oh wow,
Nothing's changed. I mean, it's life as normal,
Mhm.
which is different than my other friend who, as soon as this happened, immediately went into isolation. And her son is not allowed out with anybody because of immuno issues. And so, over here you have someone who's completely on the opposite side, is, hunkered down. And so I think, just to be able to realize that everyone's going to be approaching that from a different perspective. And it would be helpful if parents knew, like, hey, just so you know, it's been really good, but being really good now might be, it might have been that you had the sweetest and wonderfulest of family times. But then when, little Johnny or Susie goes back to school, it might look a lot different for you, because Johnny and Susie really liked being at home with you all the time. And now all of a sudden they're going back to school and now they don't want to. And so I think, you might have a lot of that just adjustment period. And I think we're all going to have adjustment period. That's something that we've been talking about. And I'm sure Suzanne, you're thinking through is it's not just reopen the door. Like, that's probably not what it's going to look like. It's not like we close the door on March 17th. Now, open the floodgates on May 3rd or May 15th or May 30 or pick whatever day it is. It's going to be phased. And so we have to look at that phase, what's that going to look like, and knowing that no one really knows what it's going to look like. And so we're just have to be patient and figure it out as we go, and hope that this provides us with important information, which preferably we'll never, ever, ever have to use again. But should we have to, we will have learned from this. We'll have some information, that helps us inform better decisions in the future. But for now, I think we're going to have to be patient with one another and patient with ourselves, that you might have made a plan on Sunday and on Thursday you had to make a different plan.
Right. I love that. I love that you said that, because that's my final question / discussion, is that planning. I'm a person, I want to be able to call someone, what's the plan? Or, hey, what's our plan for this? And right now, I think I heard the quote. I think it was Eisenhower, I think, made the quote. But basically, a plan means nothing, but planning means everything right now. So it's the actual planning that I'm sharing with our administration. That planning is collaborative, and we can come up with all these different scenarios and possibilities, but the plan itself can't be in place. And probably for, I would guess, months to come, no plan will be solid and concrete. So even for families, I know personally, I'm planning a summer vacation. The planning itself makes me happy. It's something to look forward to. So what would you say to families as we head into May, we're thinking about summer? What advice might you give to be able to plan, but not get too caught up in the, oh my goodness, the plan can't happen, or I've got to change the plan? What advice do you have there with planning?
It always makes me think of that book. Did you ever have Choose Your Own Adventures books when you were a kid?
Yes.
If this, then you go this way. If this, then you go this way. So we learned the hard way when our son was very little, actually during the Oakhill day school years. We used to do what was called a family adventure. And we used to actually tell him what we were going to do on the family adventure. It's family adventure today. Today we're going to go do. And one day we said we were going to go to a pizza place that involves a giant mouse and games. We got there and it was closed. Like closed, like not opening today. Like we're in the process of closing down and we're going to reopen in another location. And it was bad. I mean, the whole rest of the day was ruined. He was in a bad mood because, he's a little kid. He didn't understand. Like, he didn't care that they were under a remodel or whatever, or that they were moving. It's just that we had promised this and that wasn't going to happen. So we decided then and there that what mattered most is that we were going to have family adventures. What would change is what we were going to do on the family adventure. That Price and I would have 3 or 4 ideas in our back pocket of what family adventure might be that day. And we were just going to have to wait and see, because if the weather was bad, it might be this plan. If the weather was good, it might be this plan. But if we get to that place and they're closed down early, well, then we might go to this plan. So we would have a few different options. But the plan was always, we were always planning for some type of family adventure. So I think, that's what most places are doing, is we're planning for some type of way for our congregation to get back together, right? You're planning for students to get back. That's the hope. That's the goal. How is that going to look? Oh, we have no idea. But we have a lot of options that we're putting in our hat, and we're going to have to just wait and see, because when we get to May 15th, is it, okay, now you can be back in groups of 10? No, actually, we're going to extend it. Oh, well, you can be groups of 50, 250, 500. Like, I think there's going to have to be all these varieties, like choose your own adventure of like, if this, then that, if this, then that. And so I think that's probably similar for parents is you could say, okay, well, we're going to come up with a variety of options. But if you're saying, well, I'm going to go to Disney on June 15th. I don't know if that's going to happen for you. I mean, it might, and it might not. So maybe instead of saying we're going to plan an adventure and we're going to kind of put our ducks in this way, but we're just going to have to play a wait and see, which most planners don't enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I said the positive about that is sometimes I love to read, but I don't take time to read. So I have a stack, that high of things I printed off like 2 or 3 weeks ago that I didn't get around to. But right now, I just throw them away because after 24 hours, most of the things I'm reading are not valid anymore anyway. So it's a great time to just scoot things into the recycle bucket and start over on a fresh day.
I agree. And to get creative and put, your creative ideas in a bucket that aren't limited by that and say, well, you never know. I might pull this out or I might not. And we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're all in the same boat, I think, when it comes to planning for sure. For sure. Well, Shannon, as always, it's always good to talk to you. I look forward to this time each week. We thank you for all of your advice and we look forward to week 6 next week. So until then, have a wonderful week.
It's great to see you all. I'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye, Shannon.
Bye.